So the collection, treatment and disposal of solid waste in a proper manner is called solid waste management. There are some materials which you cannot bury in the ground because it will take thousands to thousands of years for it to degrade in the soil. The waste is collected by transportation and then it is taken to the disposal site. So talking about transportation. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on Environmental Studies for second semester B.Ca. I am Dr. Divya, Environmental Studies faculty, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. So in today's session, let us continue with Unit 5, that is Environmental Pollution. So in this session, let us concentrate on solid waste, how to manage this solid waste and what are the different sources of solid waste. So talking about solid waste, so what are these solid waste? So the range of garbage materials that come from animal and human activities that are discarded as unwanted and useless are called as solid waste. So any waste that occurs from a plant, because of human beings or because of animals which are solid in nature, for example from human beings, the papers, the household vegetable peels. So a lot of these solid materials that we throw out which is not of any use. So such materials are called as the solid waste. So next, talking about solid waste management. So solid waste management involves the collection, treatment and disposal of solid waste in a proper manner. So the collection, treatment and disposal of solid waste in a proper manner is called solid waste management. So next, talking about the sources of solid waste, from where and all the solid waste can be generated. That is from household. So in household we have the food waste, the paper, cardboard, plastics, textiles, leather, glass, metal, ashes, electrical waste, all these come under the solid waste. Any solid material that we use in the house which we find is not of any use further, we throw it out, right? So that is the household solid waste. Next, solid waste can come from industries. These are the toxic chemicals, the oil, the waste materials that are generated in the construction site, the packaging waste materials like we have the thermocoals, the styrofoams and all that, then the ashes, all these are the industrial solid waste. Next is solid waste from agriculture. Pesticides, the insecticides, the chemical fertilizers, crops, water coming from the field, they also contain solid waste because these chemical fertilizers and all that will mix with that water and it will pollute the water, and this running water will carry the solid waste. Next is solid waste from hospitals like medicine bottles, then some of the expired medicines, syringes, some of the medical instruments such as scissors, blades, etc. So all these are the solid waste from hospitals. Next, let's study about solid waste management. So the solid waste management can be studied under different components. So the first component is generation, then comes storage, then collection, then transportation, and next is disposal. So what are the key components of solid waste? We have generation, storage, after storage, the transport of these waste, after the transport, the disposal of these waste. So all these are the key components which we will study one by one. So first, generation of waste. So this is a stage at which all the solid waste materials or any material that we are using, if it becomes useless or if it is of no use or if it doesn't have any value, we actually throw them, right? So that is called as the generation. So generation of solid waste is nothing but any material that is put into the dustbin or thrown which is of no use. Next is storage of these materials. So after generating these materials, it is our duty to not just throw it out wherever we want. We have to store them until somebody comes and collects it, or we have to take it and put it in a particular area where a dustbin has been kept in that particular community for collection of solid waste. So talking about storage. So in this particular step, we have to keep the materials that has been discarded before people come to collect it and finally dispose the solid waste. So we have dustbins, we keep dustbins at home, right? So whatever waste is there, we put it into the dustbin. Do we throw it here and there? No, that is nothing but storage. So previous day, today you have collected all the waste, the next day some municipality person will come to collect that solid waste. Until then you have to store it. Next, for storage, what and all can be used? So you can use small containers, like some household containers, these huge paint bins and all that are there, that can be used. Then we can use plastic bins. Then we can use large containers. If in a house lots of people are there wherein large number of solid waste is generated, and larger containers can be used, like communal bins, oil drums, or oil drums can be kept in the home. Or what can be done is, we can also keep, say for example, sometimes the municipality people cannot go regularly to collect waste from the houses. So can we keep the waste like that for too long? So if we can't keep the waste like that for too long in a house, does it mean that we have to throw it wherever we like? No. For that, communal bins will be there, wherein in a particular area or in that particular community, huge large bins will be kept in one place, wherein we have to walk to that bin and then dump the waste there, so that the municipality people, at least 2 days once or 3 days once, they can come and that they'll just take that bin and clean that place. Next is shallow pits. So shallow pits are nothing but, say for example, for a larger community wherein bins are not sufficient, their shallow area will be meant for collection of the waste. So people can go and dump the waste there, and from that dumping area, the municipality people will come and pick up the waste. So that is communal depots, which is nothing but walled or fenced areas. So next is collection. Now we have stored the solid waste. Now how will the municipality people or people concerned with this particular solid waste, they come to collect it? So how waste is collected for transportation to the final disposal site, that is what is done in collection. So here the waste is collected by transportation and then it is taken to the disposal site. So talking about transportation. So after collection of the waste has to be transported. It has to be carried that is, from each house it has to be collected, or it has to be collected from the community bin or large dustbins that is kept in an area or collection sites in an area, and then it has to be taken in a vehicle to the disposal site. So here solid waste is transported to the final disposal site. So how can the transportation be done? So transportation can be human powered. That is, either open hand cart can be used. So most of us have seen wherein the municipality people or workers, they actually push carts. So each house they will park that cart there and then they will empty the dustbin and they will move further, right? So open hand cart can be used. Then hand cart with waste bins can be used. Then wheelbarrow can be used. Tricycles can be used. Or it can be animal powered, wherein donkey drawn carts are also used. This is usually not found nowadays. Next is motorized, that is tractors and trailers and standard trucks, tipper trucks. All this also can be used for collection of the solid waste or transportation of the solid waste. So all these are very familiar to us because we have seen them every morning. We just see these things, right? Next is after collection, transporting it to the disposal site. Now in the disposal site, how do they dispose it? How do they get rid of the waste? First is land application, wherein burial or land filling is done. So here either the waste are buried or they are just dumped in that particular landfill. So after this, there will be some waste which are capable of decomposition, like the vegetable waste that we use in a house. What they do is they separate the vegetable waste, they mix it with soil, they allow it to decompose and leave it like that for few weeks or months, and whatever compost comes out of it, that is again sold as organic waste. That can be done. So composting can be done, then burning or incineration. So there are some materials which cannot be composted, there are some materials which cannot be recycled, and there are some materials which you cannot bury in the ground because it will take thousands to thousands of years for it to degrade in the soil. So at that time, what can be done is such materials will be separated in the disposal site and it will be burnt or incinerated. So what do they do in burning or incineration? Here, they actually collect all the material which is supposed to be burned, and they will put it in huge burners and it will be lit either using electricity or manually, and the material will start to burn there. So that is how they go in for burning or incineration. Or burning or incineration, some of the hospitals especially, hospital materials cannot be recycled, hospital materials cannot be decomposed. So what to do with the hospital materials? So at that time, some of the bigger hospitals, they'll have their own incineration center. Otherwise, what they do is they collect such materials separately and give it to the municipality people, wherein these people will actually burn those or incinerate those materials. Otherwise, in hospitals itself, they'll have very small boxes. So what the nurses will do is, very soon after injecting, they have to dispose that syringe, right? So they'll just put it into that box. That box will automatically burn the syringe into ashes. So that is how it can be done. Next is, some of the materials are capable of being recycled, like plastics. If we burn plastic, it will cause air pollution. And plastics do not decompose, therefore we cannot make compost out of it. So what can be done? We cannot bury it in the soil because it will take thousands to thousands of years to decompose. So what can be done? Plastics can be separated and it can be recycled. So this is how separation will be done in the disposal site. Next, talking about control measures of urban and industrial waste. So first is source reduction. Next is reuse, recycling, and next is segregation and disposal. We all have heard about it, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. So that is about these. Next is last is segregation and disposal. So talking about the source reduction. Source reduction means let us reduce the number of solid waste we are generating. So therefore, it will not be a problem in the future. So that is what it means. So reduction in the use of raw materials will therefore decrease the production of the solid waste. For example, reduced demand for any metallic product will decrease the mining of these metals and therefore cause less production of waste. So instead of using that particular metal, why not go in for an alternative, so that the mining process of that particular metal will get reduced and therefore the generation of solid waste can be reduced. So that is what it means. So first itself, going in for source reduction, or as I can say, like we can take the example of an office. So there is an office wherein to clip the sheets, they use stapler pins. So instead of stapler pins, and stapler pins, once you use it, next it is for throwing purpose only. It will not go in for recycling because first of all it is very small. It will not go in for recycling, nor it can be reused, right? So what can be done alternate there? How can we reduce the source, or how can we reduce the use of these stapling pins? Instead, we can go in for paper clips, because paper clips are reusable again and again and again. Until you lose it, you can reuse it, right? So that is how some small changes if we make, we can reduce the source of solid waste. Next is the reusing. So here the refillable containers which are discarded. Say for example, we get a lot of plastic containers, right? Like you buy ghee, it comes in a plastic container, or you buy some, nowadays you get milkshakes and all, if you order, that also comes in bottled containers. Then there's canned food, that also comes in tin containers. So if such containers are capable of being reused, why not go in for reusing? Why should we simply throw it away, right? For example, jam bottles. Every house they buy jam, and very neatly we can just clean off the bottle, we can remove the wrapper, and then we can reuse it for kitchen purpose, for storing many things. So like that, some of the cans, bottles and all that which is capable of being reused can be reused. Why should we simply throw it away and generate solid waste, right? So say for example, the villagers can make casseroles and silos from waste paper and from other waste materials, and rubber rings from the discarded cycle tubes. So cycle tubes, we cannot burn it, because if we burn it, it will generate a lot of toxic chemicals to the air which is poisonous, causing air pollution. Cycle tubes, we cannot bury it because it takes a lot of time to decompose, and also it will release a lot of chemicals to the soil which is not good for the good microbes there. So what can be done? Here the cycle tube can be made into small rubber rings, like how we use rubber bands, right? Just like that, small bands it can be made into, so that we can use it. So when this cycle tubes are converted into rubber rings and used, then we don't have to again manufacture rubber bands, right? So if we stop the manufacturing of rubber bands, then it is like we are stopping the waste generation, that is solid waste generation. So rubber rings from the discarded cycle tubes can be used instead of rubber bands. This will reduce the waste generation during manufacturing of rubber bands. So that is how we can reduce the solid waste. Next is by recycling. So recycling is nothing but the reprocessing of discarded materials into new useful products. So plastics, instead of just burning it, instead of just discarding it just like that, collect it separately so that it can be given to a separate people who come for collection. They can take it to the recycling center and they can make use of it in many ways. Say for example, aluminium cans and glass bottles. So they can be melted, they can be recasted, and they can be converted into new cans and bottles which can be used again further. Next, preparation of automobiles and construction materials from steel cans can also be done. So automobile parts, then some of the construction materials can also be prepared from recycled steel cans. Or the best thing is, what can be done is to generate, to prevent plastics. So plastics, say for example, some of the plastics may not be capable of undergoing recycling, or 2 or 3 times recycled plastic, again further you cannot recycle. So what can be done with such plastics? So such plastics and all, there is a person in Bangalore, his name is Amjad Khan. So what he did was, he actually, with one of the engineering colleges in Bangalore, he collaborated with them and he tried to create plastic roads. So there are some roads in Bangalore which contain, that is the plastic. They mix tar and plastic, and that is polyblend they'll do, that is mixing tar and plastic, and they will lay roads. So now we have found a solution for the plastic waste also, and in turn the plastic is not going, it's not getting formed into a solid waste because it is used for making roads. So all these small changes can actually reduce the generation of solid waste to a larger extent. Next is segregation and disposal. So there might be some materials which cannot be recycled, which cannot be reused, cannot be burned, nothing can be done. So what can we do with them? For that, sanitary landfill can be done, wherein garbages that are collected or solid waste that are collected will be spread out in very thin layers, and they will be compacted and covered with clay or plastic foam. That is what they used to do earlier times. But nowadays what they do is, these landfills, they cover the bottom of the landfill with an impermeable liner. Impermeable means so that the toxic chemicals will not leach into the soil. For that, they will cover it with the impermeable liner. That is, what is that impermeable liner made up of? It is made up of clay, thick plastic and sand. So, several layers, so that when these materials are decomposing, the chemicals will not enter into the soil. So, that for that particular purpose, that can be done. Next is composting can be done. So, there are some solid waste that are generated from households, such as the vegetable waste and all that. So, these vegetable waste, the agriculture waste and all are biodegradable, that is the crops and all that. So, what can be done is, they can be mixed with the soil, they can be biodegraded, so that when they become a compost, they can be sold to the farmers as organic manure. So, this is what in composting it can be done. Next is, sometimes we cannot go in for any of the method. We can go in for incineration, wherein huge burning plants will be set up. In that burning plants, all these materials which cannot be decomposed, which cannot be left in the landfills, all that can be dumped, and it can be burnt at high degree temperature, that is 900 degree Celsius. So, this is how through incineration also solid waste can be managed. So, this was about the session wherein we completely studied about the solid waste, what are the different sources of solid waste, how we can manage the solid waste by reducing, reusing and recycling these materials. So, all that we learnt in this session. So, I hope you understood this session. So, with this, the unit comes to an end. So, we shall meet again in the coming sessions with a new unit. Thank you.